All right, today we are going to talk about Title 101, the beginning of title work. This is recorded. This is going to be on the YouTube channel. Our guests today are Travis Bumblaw and Paige Mayersick. Am I pronouncing
That's correct.
Crushed you, Don.
Paramount Title in Cookeville, but Paramount Title has other locations as well. And they seem to be growing as well. Every time I take a look, it's like something else is opening up. But what we want to do is just kind of go over the information that you think everybody needs to know to make it a smooth transaction for everybody. Because I know that I can probably learn quite a bit on this as well. So Paige and Travis, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. And we look forward to hearing what you got.
Well, as you know, our process in the title insurance industry is to do a title search for the landowner. And we go back 30 years in that transaction to make sure that legally the property is transferred from owner to owner without exception. So we're looking for bankruptcies, foreclosures. We make sure that liens are not attached or paid in full. We look for judgments. We look for mortgages that need to be paid, but we're also looking at the legal descriptions to make sure that the properties are described properly. A lot of people think that the street address is what's important, and that's not necessarily true. The land that you're purchasing is described by a legal description. Now, Travis is a pro at doing title searches, so I'll let him chime in there.
Yeah, so like Paige mentioned, the first thing we're going to do here at the title company, once we get a contract, is start a title search. That's exactly what she just explained. We're searching for any liens, encumbrances, easements, anything that may be on the title to that specific property. And typically we are going back 30 years. Sometimes we do go back more depending on the deal, depending on the property. Yes, that's exactly what we're looking for: liens, encumbrances, easements, things of that nature. And there's a lot that can go into that, sometimes. And there's a lot that can come back. And it's one of those things in title that not a lot of people think about. We just got bigger.
Yeah.
But yes, that's the first thing we're going to do. And it is very important because a lot of the time people don't realize what might come back on their title. And they may not know what is there. And so that's the first step. That's the first thing that we're going to do.
Ensuring title is so extremely important because what somebody is doing is investing the biggest investment they'll ever make in their life. And so we want to make sure that that title is clear without defect. A lot of people don't understand what title insurance is, and it covers you against any loss based on what our research was. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we ensure that title is clear before someone purchases that real property.
Right. And that's one of the biggest parts of our job is, taking that title search, everything that comes back, and, correcting the things that need to be corrected to make sure that the buyer is buying the property with free and clear title. And there's no issues following them when they purchase the property.
Most importantly, we want to make sure that they're happy and that we do deal with all the drama behind the scenes. We don't want the customer to think that they don't have a chance of purchasing a property, or a seller doesn't have a problem to sell the property. We're working on behalf of both the buyer and seller to make sure the transaction goes smoothly. So we try to keep the drama behind the scenes and clear up title before it ever gets to the point of closing at the table. Makes it a little bit easier on the customer's pocket, and also making sure that the transaction goes smooth.
Great. So I know one of the things that's always comes up is that optional title insurance for a buyer to buy. What is that about?
Owner's title insurance is an optional purchase. When we issue a title insurance policy for a lender, that's required by the lender to ensure that the lender's collateral is clear. But the buyer doesn't have to purchase owner's title insurance. They can, based on every transaction that we do, we offer owner's title insurance to the buyer just because the cost is so minimal based on the fact that you get a policy for 30 years investment coverage. So the policy is issued what we call simultaneous issue, which means that we actually issue the policy for the lender and the buyer gets a benefit of a reduced cost. And most of the time I see that expense somewhere between $50 and $250 based on a simultaneous issue. That's on an average sales price of a home. So when you think about the fact that you're going to own this home, maybe 10 years, maybe 15, sometimes 30, you've got that policy of coverage based on everything that we researched. And we want to make sure that customer feels comfortable. It's a peace of mind insurance policy.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you said that, Paige. That's what I tell people with title insurance. We highly recommend, buying owners of title insurance, especially, if you are taking out a loan, because you're going to have to buy lender's title insurance anyway. If you are buying lender's insurance, you're going to get a pretty steep discount on your owner's insurance, and that's what you're buying, is peace of mind, and it protects against things that, like Paige said, that may come back on your chain of title the entire time that you own the property. So that's another common question we get is this a monthly thing, a yearly thing? No, it's for the entire time that you own the property. Say you're buying a average price, home, call it 200,000, 250,000. You're paying somewhere around $200 for the owner's title insurance, and that's for the entirety that you own the property.
And there's never another renewal premium that comes up every year. It's a one-time fee.
All right, and Rob, it looks like Robin has a question on there. Go ahead, Robin.
Hey guys.
Hi, Robin.
So with the title insurance, I'm guessing that this depends on what your policy states, but does it typically cover attorney's fees if you have to take it to court?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
Yes,
good.
that's the whole purpose of the policy.
Yeah. So essentially what title insurance is, if there is a claim, and you've taken out owner's title insurance, the title insurance underwriter is going to fight that on your behalf, so you don't have to. So if you don't have that policy and something were to come back, that's on you to go fight. So you're going to have to retain the attorney. You're going to have to take time to go to court to fight it. You're going to have to do all of these things. And like I said, it's going to be on you. But if you have that policy, the title insurance underwriter is going to take care of everything for you.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And what are some of the issues that you might see that might come up during a title search, and how long does it normally take to do the process once we as lenders send that over to you to say, go ahead, get started?
If there is a title issue, usually it depends, and everyone is different. Most of our title issues that come up are old unreleased mortgages or a judgment lien against a party that might have owned the property 2 or 3 people back in the chain of title, and of course manufactured homes. Those are the biggest title issues that we have. Estates become sometimes difficult because we have to track down heirs and or devisees of a will. And so there are so many factors that can come into play. When we have something that looks like it's going to be a difficult title problem, then we will reach out to the mortgage lender and the parties involved and make sure that they know instantly that we are going to have some time constraints based on what we can do. So I always forewarn someone, if they're purchasing a property that's listed in an estate, or if they have a manufactured home, there can be delays or difficulties getting that title cleared. So we automatically start in on a title curative process to get that expedited. And I'd say 2 weeks is the average when you have a title issue, but sometimes they can be more lengthy if we have a problem tracking down an heir to a property or finding a title certificate to a manufactured home. There's so many different factors that come into play.
Yeah, I just recently heard of one that had like 11 heirs to a property. So
we did God, this is probably 4 or 5 months ago. We had a title search come back that had 52 heirs on it.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like that in my life. But you do run into situations like that, from time to time.
And a lot of people don't understand if there are claims from a 10 care release. It takes some time to get that back from the state to determine what needs to be paid. Sometimes a judgment lien may take some time. They won't give us the judgment lien payoff. They want to speak directly to the owner of that judgment, and that becomes difficult. We love what we do, and we want to make sure that everybody has a smooth transaction and enjoys the closing process instead of just feeling like they've been dragged through the mud. And so most importantly, we make sure that transaction happens without the kinks.
Wonderful, wonderful. One of the things that goes on nowadays, and I don't know if I'm sure y'all can probably address at least better than we on this side with as real estate agents or lenders on there, or just common people, is you're seeing things come up about title fraud. I mean, how much are you seeing that where or that comes across where you see someone's claiming title or changing title over to their name and they have no claim to it whatsoever? It's just they're fraudulently taking care of the document.
I have actually helped Tennessee Bureau of Investigation investigate about 3 different cases where someone came in and claimed to be the owner of the property, and then we found out that it was a transaction coming from California where someone had stated that they had an investor. They would come in and make a down payment. These people in California would be defrauded. They would give money to someone who said they were going to invest in land in Tennessee, and then once everything was closed with the transaction, the property title would be transferred to them. That's not that's a sheer case of fraud. We have several. We can look up a identification process that shows whether or not someone is a terrorist laundering money to fund terrorist acts by selling real estate or purchasing real estate. Foreign investors are often the target of fraud. A lot of times we have legal foreign investors that come in and actually do invest in properties, but we do a very serious research on that individual before that comes through the process. The transaction that I investigated with TBI, I had a guy come in from California with someone else's money and then actually made a down payment to a builder, and the builder started construction on the home. About midway, we found out that he was a fraud, and then he ran, and TBI finally arrested him somewhere in North Carolina after he had gone through 8 states committing fraud on sale of property. So it was a good day for the title insurance company and the TBI as well. But sometimes there's a red flag or a gut feeling that you have when you notice that there's a problem with title.
And then as homeowners, what can homeowners do to protect themselves from someone coming in and changing the title to their name?
Criminals are very smart nowadays, and they know what to do, and they know how to search something online and determine who the owner is and pose as that owner. There's really not a whole lot of protection that you can have when somebody does something like that. The only thing you can do is go back and prove your ownership. The title insurance owner's policy is probably the best protection that you'll ever have as far as showing your ownership. A deed is a deed, and it does show that you have ownership and title to that land. However, if somebody were to come in and commit fraud and pose as you, then title insurance policy is the one thing that will cover you against those kind of claims.
All right. So anybody have any questions? Feel free to speak up, write something in the chat there. And we can do it. What can we as realtors and lenders do to help y'all make the process smoother on there? And probably communication is probably a big thing on there, but just any tips from your side as far as what we can do.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I mean, communication is the biggest thing. It's just having communication between us, you as the agent, you as the lender. Because we're all the same team at the end of the day. We all have the same goal at the end of the day, and that's having a smooth transaction to get into closing and everybody be happy at the end, right? So communication first and foremost is the biggest piece to that. Second, for I would say lenders and agents is just expectations upfront to what the process is going to look like. From the agent's perspective and the lender's perspective, but also what to expect with title. And what that process is going to look like. And again, if you have good communication, that allows us to explain that process as well. And so what does that do? The clients are properly communicated with, and they understand exactly what's going to happen through the entire transaction. And they know where they're at every step of the way in the transaction. I think that's one thing we pride ourselves on is that communication piece. So clients aren't left in the dark. They always know what's going on. If they have questions, we're always here to answer those questions. And so I think that's the biggest two things I would say.
One thing about Paramount Title is we do send out a title insurance commitment to the buyer as well as to the lender. And usually most of the time, the buyer's agent is copied on that email that goes out through our secure portal, which explains what we have to do as a requirement to issue title insurance and clear up that title problem. So if it's something that seems difficult to understand, that leaves the open for questions from the realtor to contact us. If they have questions and they don't understand what's being required, then it makes it a little bit easier for the communication between the buyers and the sellers to understand what's happening. Often we find that people get really frustrated because they don't understand what we do on our side of the business, and it helps with the communication between the realtors and their customers.
Mhm.
Wonderful. What other, any other insights that you have just as far as the whole process? Are there any particulars or
most importantly, we need as much information that you can gather from a seller. We want to make sure that we know that seller inside and out. We have to have their social security numbers. And a lot of people don't like to give those social security numbers to make sure that they are not fraudulent or a foreign investor that we have to research. We also need information as far as a manufactured home. Sometimes we'll need a copy of a title certificate. And if there's not one available, we have to go through a lengthy process there, which we explain to someone. If there is an estate, we need a list of everybody that could be involved in that estate sale of that real property. That could be an heir or a devisee or devisee of a will. We'll need contact information for their attorneys in the event that we need to contact them and ask for some things that we need. Most importantly, as much information as a realtor or a lender can gather helps us get to where we need to get started on title research and handle anything behind the scenes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, especially if it's going through an estate or if there's a lot going on with that particular deal, more information the better for us. That's just going to make the process smoother for everybody because it's just information we're going to need anyway. So the more of that we can get up front, the better. And for estates specifically, for all the agents and lenders on this call, we've got a list of the documents that you need to gather, or we'll need to gather, somebody will need to gather from your clients in the course of the transaction. And the earlier we can have that, the better. And so it kind of acts as a good checklist to say, when you sit down with your client, say, hey, we're going through an estate, you're going to need these documents. So the earliest you can get these in, the better. So I guess in a nutshell, like Paige said, more information, the better.
And we do have training seminars where we can teach everybody what we actually need and what our process is. So often I will go out to real estate companies, mortgage lenders, and sometimes teach classes at the Association of Realtors to explain what our process is in the title industry, but also to help educate them to understand what will help a transaction go much smoother.
And something like an estate will probably end up extending the expected closing time, wouldn't it?
To extend. Often estates take a lot more time than necessary. just because we have to make sure that there's not anyone out there that could come back and try to claim against that real property estate. Estates are difficult in the fact that an estate is not necessarily the real property that you own. An estate is everything that includes your assets, your liabilities, houses, boats, cars, everything that's involved. And often we have to determine by law and go through the process of contacting the court system to have the real estate pulled in as a sale to pay off the debts of the estate. Real estate is the largest asset that you own. So sometimes it's not really necessary to pull the real estate into the estate closing. So there are so many different factors that come into play as to whether or not an estate needs to be probated. And that does take some time.
Also, just more people are involved because of, could be 50 something heirs.
Yeah, right.
Well,
and what you're looking
I,
for.
in fact, had a transaction where it took 3 years to close because they had to go through a quiet title lawsuit. A family in Overton County that actually claimed a state claim to a property. There were 6 heirs, and they lived in Louisiana. And by the time we got through all of the research, going through family chains and graveyards and everything else, they all had title to the property, but they didn't have any way to prove it. And it started out with 21-acre farm that their family owned back in the 30s. And by the time they got down to what they actually figured out that they owned was 3 acres. But I made such friends with the family to learn their history and help them get introduced into some people in Overton County who were part of their family that they had never met. So it was actually a good feeling after it all came together and the customer was satisfied.
So as realtors can dig further, with whether they're the listing agent or the buyer's agent and their clients, and just being able to ask the questions, and they can reach out to you to understand the process, because it's not often that we're going to come across something like estates or something that's outside the normal purchase transaction. So it's reaching out to you to get what your process might be, what documents might need, or what timeline might be, so they can set the right expectations. And then we as lenders can kind of help that along with them if we see anything. And then clients, so that they're just having the right expectations and understand that it is a process.
We do have a very knowledgeable staff. At any time, if there's a question that cannot be answered, they'll come to me or to Travis. But we do have a very knowledgeable staff on board. I'm very proud of our team. If there's ever a question that somebody needs, or there's a problem that it's not getting expedited, then of course it comes to me. But for the most part, we have a very good team here that's very talented and educated.
I like how you say for the most part. So you kind of got that one in there that you're unsure about. Yeah, I always use that asterisk as well on there, leave myself an out. So no, y'all have always been very helpful with any of us on there, and we really appreciate that. Does anybody else have any questions that we can help get addressed while we're here? Okay, I guess not. Any parting shots?
Well, you always know you can contact Paramount Paige or Title Trav. We're always here.
Absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll have that contact information on there as well when I post this, so that will be out there so people can reach out to you from there as well. We really thank you for your time today on there. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the Monday, enjoy the week, and we'll go from there. Everybody have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Don.
Don.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day.